All right. Ring the bells, light the white smoke. It's Behind the Table with Anna Navarro. Hello, everybody.
Habemos Ana.
Yes. God heard my prayers and did not elect a new pope until after our live show with President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden was finished airing. It was by about 2 minutes. So thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. All right. So here we go.
Everything for you.
Everything. It's all about me.
It's all about you.
Everything's about me. But let's get right into this interview, which I thought was fascinating. And I was looking forward to it for the last couple of weeks. Former President Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden were here with us today. Let's start at the beginning. Why do you think he wanted to come on this show and talk when most former presidents don't speak this soon after leaving office?
Look, I think there's a few things. First, the first 100 days of Trump are over, and I think that's a symbolic deadline, if you like, a symbolic threshold. I think there's been kind of like an understanding amongst presidents in normal times that the previous president doesn't really go out and criticize the current president.
Even when they're different parties.
But this is not normal times. And you've got a Donald Trump who, as Joy mentioned in the interview, has mentioned Joe Biden, blamed him for just about everything. 580 times he's mentioned Joe Biden, blaming him and attacking him, calling him despective names. So I think it probably has taken a lot of discipline for Joe Biden not to answer. And look, I also think we can't pretend that there's not books coming out very soon that basically document and claim that people close to Joe Biden were saying that he has cognitive decline and that he shouldn't have run. It kind of relitigates, from my understanding, I haven't read the books, from my understanding, it relitigates the entire idea of, should he have quit before, should he had never run?
Were they covering something up?
Was there a cover up by his staff? And so I think smartly, he wanted to get out in front of those books, answer the tough questions,
which we gave him many.
And show the country and the world that no, he's not in a catatonic state of cognitive decline, that he's with it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've had many big interviews on the View. We've had we've had presidents, we've had people running, we've had all these things, and it's always a special feeling in the building. This one was one of my favorite interviews we've ever done. I think, at least in the 10 years I've been here, because
Why?
I think it was very balanced. It was we got through everything, which never happens. I mean, very often.
Well, you know where that happened.
Yes, you yelled at him.
Yes, and I told him.
And I yelled at you. Those were the two things.
When he was coming in, I just before he went out, I said to him, "Listen, we have a lot of questions to get through. You can't go long. You need to be brief and succinct. Please don't be Joe Biden."
Well, it's one of the hardest things
because that's been like an ongoing joke. Like when he was in the Senate, his questions are, monologues.
And it's not just him. All politicians do this. It's a problem on our show because we want to be respectful, regardless of whether we get along with somebody or have different opinions about somebody. This is a man who was president of the United States. It is very difficult to jump in and cut them off. And, occasionally Joy will do we've only got an hour, Mr. President, that kind of thing. But it's a hard thing to do. You want to be respectful. They are people of substance, and you want to hear what they have to say. But at the same time, there are important questions we had to get to. We got through everything. It's never happened.
I think he took it a little too much to heart. Some of those questions I wish he had expanded on.
I mean, I could have done another hour. But let's go through some of the things he said today. So we asked him about former Vice President Kamala Harris saying on our show that she wouldn't do anything different from him, and how many people believe that comment led to her loss. It is really something that continues. It'll be mentioned in these books coming out. Sonny brings it up daily. It is one of those things where the idea that asking that question changed the fate of the election. I don't know if I buy into that, but it was certainly an important moment. What did you think about what he had to say about that?
I thought there's been all this speculation, even during the election, even during the administration, early years of the administration, and during the entire 4 years of the Biden administration, Biden-Harris administration. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of gossip about a bad relationship between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I thought he was incredibly deferential, respectful, and affectionate towards her today, talking about how there were times when they argued like hell, but at the same time, at the end of the day, he made the decisions and they worked it out. I think he, talked a lot about how he knew what the role of vice president was because he had been, a vice president for Barack Obama. Look, I frankly think these two people, and I have seen them together a lot. Not in the last 6 months, but before that, during the 4 years that they served, genuinely like and respect each other. Mm-hmm. And I know that might not make for good fodder and may not make for good news stories, but that's what I observed time and again. And so I think that when Kamala came here and couldn't come up with an answer for that question that the people wanted an answer. The people wanted something so that there would be sunlight.
Right, because the world wasn't in the perfect place and they wanted to know what the plan was.
Yeah, I think her loyalty and affection and love towards him kept her from coming up with the answer that that people expected and wanted.
Right. Now he specifically said,
and I think today he showed the same level of love, affection, and respect for her in
Absolutely.
his answers.
There is, I think, going to be reporting in these books coming out that he specifically told Vice President not to put any daylight between the two of them. He said that's absolutely not true. So it's curious.
I know these people. I know Kamala. Mm-hmm. I know Joe Biden. I've known Joe Biden for almost 30 years. I cannot imagine Joe Biden saying that to Kamala Harris. I just can't.
One of the shorter answers he had, which I thought was pretty much, I think what we called it, a mic drop moment. He said the reason why President Trump mentions him so much is because he beat him in 2020. I do think that probably is something that festers for Donald Trump.
Well, we know so because he's back in the White House. He's back behind the Resolute, and he's still practically every chance he gets cannot stop mentioning that he won the 2020 election,
right.
which he didn't.
He did not.
I mean, frankly, if Joe Biden were saying that, they'd accused him of cognitive decline. Mm-hmm. How are we not accusing? How is the media not accusing Donald Trump of cognitive decline if every time he's got a microphone in front of him, he claims to have won the 2020 election, which we all know he lost. The people who worked for him at the time, his attorney general, they all know he lost. He knows he lost, and he continues. He's either delusional, has cognitive decline, or is lying. And yet we have kind of gotten numb to the ridiculous, outrageous, untrue, inaccurate things that Donald Trump says, which would make anybody else look like they were losing their mind and their bearings. We just kind of like from Trump, we accept the fact that he says crazy stuff on a daily basis.
Well, President Biden called President Trump a bully and vacant. It got a big response. Actually, that was the mic drop moment now that I think about it. What did you think about those responses? They were very quick and sharp.
And actually, it's funny because I've seen Joe Biden do this before. In some of the debates, he's done it, not the debate from hell, but some of the previous debates. Some of the times, because people always expect long-winded answers from Joe Biden, when he answers with a word or two, it's incredibly effective.
Yeah, it worked, I thought. Speaking of the debate from hell, Whoopi...
And surely, I would be shocked if Donald Trump was not on, what's it called? Truth Social, Lie Social, Lie Anti-Social is what it should be called. Attacking Joe Biden because of what he said. I am so glad we gave him a platform to respond to some of those ridiculous attacks that Donald Trump has been waging against him, against his family, against his administration. Good for him.
Speaking of the debate from hell, as you colorfully called it, Whoopi brought it up today. And President Biden really admitted that he did a terrible job in that debate. He really took responsibility for that. He also said that losing the election was his fault. Whether you agree with that or not, it was a presidential thing to do, I think, to take responsibility for it. I haven't seen him say that much about the debate before today. What did you think about that?
He said a few things. He said I had a really bad night, and
that I've heard before.
And I asked him, and this I had not heard him say before. I asked him, did you know right when you got off stage, did you know that moment that you had a really bad night? And he said, yes, I did. And Dr. Biden, Jill, said that when she went up on stage, the first thing he said to her was, oh boy, I really screwed that up. And so, look, the fact that he knew he screwed it up tells me, that he had the cognitive ability to know that he screwed it up. Because if you are completely out of it, you don't. And let's remember what was happening at that time when that debate from hell happened. He'd had a lot of international travel the weeks before. His son was in the middle of a trial. And there is no way that Joe Biden, as much as he loves those children of his, with everything that family has gone through, that wasn't weighing on him. And because also, I know that he feels some guilt for what Hunter went through. And I think he thought that the reason that Hunter was being dragged through the legal process, the criminal process, was because his father, he was president. So it was a lot of international travel. He had all these long trips just around then. He had Hunter going through trial, and he was sick. He had a terrible cold. You remember he coughed all throughout that debate.
That's right.
And I will tell you this, and I've said this to you before. I saw him. I said this to him today during commercial break. I saw him 24 hours later here in New York at an event. And in the 24 hours between that debate and when I saw him the following night, he had done an IHOP event, a pop-in into an IHOP. He had done an event at the tarmac of the airport in North Carolina.
I wouldn't say no to some IHOP right now. I'm not going to lie.
He had, what did you say?
I wouldn't say no to some IHOP right now. I'm kind of hungry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've never been to one.
Yeah.
He popped into an IHOP. He did the tarmac event at the airport. He gave a political speech in North Carolina. Then he flew to New York. And I remember he did a Stonewall event commemorating Stonewall. He did an event with Elton John after that Stonewall commemoration. And then he went to the DNC LGBTQ fundraiser where I was at. And I remember going up to him and telling him, you screwed that one up, Joe. What the hell happened? And, this cannot happen again. And him telling me then, how much he had screwed up and how cognizant he was of what had happened. Right. And I remember saying to you then, the guy I saw 24 hours later was very different than the guy who was on that debate stage. And so people say to me, people at the table have said to me that I'm biased and that I don't see it. Yes, I'm biased. I like Joe Biden. I respect Joe Biden. See, he is somebody for whom I've got the greatest affection and gratitude for. He's passed some of the most meaningful pieces of legislation that have helped women, that have helped Latinos, that have, helped Americans. But I think that I would like to think that if I had seen a Joe Biden who was completely out of it, I would be capable of coming in here and saying to you, holy moly.
Yeah.
I just saw Joe Biden and, there was nothing there. That's not who I saw. So I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to pretend that I saw something different than what I saw, which was a Joe Biden, much like the guy we just saw today at that table, just because, people around me want to tell me that it's some sort of cover up, right?
Well, listen, the thing that was different today that I hadn't really heard was Dr. Biden saying immediately that she knew it was bad too, and she said we all knew. There was no spinning that debate. Really, there was no other way around it. I was so glad Dr. Biden was here today because she's been part of these conversations too, and she fiercely defended both him and herself in a way that I thought was pretty effective. She got very, very defensive isn't the word, but strong for him in those moments. What do you think that shows about their relationship?
They've been married for 47 years.
Yeah.
I have seen them together. They have love for each other. They have passion for each other. We should all have at the age of 82. They've gone through so much together.
Yeah,
they have built a family. They built a family out of the ashes. Remember that he lost his first wife and his baby daughter in an accident, and those two boys were left motherless and were left in body casts, right. Hunter and Bo. She put that family together, and he's always said she's the love of my life and the life of my love. What you see with them is real. It's the real thing. And just think about how, the affection you see in them. I mean, when she came in, he got up in that very chivalrous way, and they kissed. They kissed in the mouth. Think about how different that is, that genuine warmth and familiarity and feeling of being comfortable with each other and being able to finish each other's sentences. How different that is from what we have today. There is an article in the New York Times today that says, "Where is Melania?" Reportedly, she's been at the White House like 14 days, according to the New York Times article, out of the last 100 days. And, it struck me having him there. First, let's go back to Jill. I remember, during the campaign, there was a one day when I was doing an event with her, like a woman's event, and it was over Zoom. And at that time, I think she was, she might have been, she was doing some sort of meetings. She had been in some sort of meetings. And I remember she didn't want it mentioned that she'd been in the meeting because she was so hurt by the idea that they were portraying her like this evil Lady Macbeth.
Well, that's what you said
today. Who was keeping
Yeah.
him in the race so that she could, be controlling. And I said at this table many times, this is a genuine marriage of love. If Jill Biden thought her husband's health was at stake and that he was incapable of doing that, she would put her love for her husband above any personal ambition. This is not a woman who has shown personal ambition. When he was in the Senate, she was in Delaware teaching and taking care of those children. When he was in the White House, think about this. When he was in the White House as vice president and as president, she was a wife, ever present by his side, a mother ever present by Hunter's side during the trial, a grandmother. They had, their granddaughter living with them in the White House. She was a first lady with a full docket of events and initiatives like this initiative she was talking about today, the Women's Health Initiative. That's her project that she started. And she was teaching 4 classes at a community college near Washington. That's what she was doing. And so, no, what we have now is not normal, and we should not accept it as normal. So all of the things that they said about Joe Biden, Donald Trump is doing worse and exponentially, and the Republicans are saying not a damn word.
There's another thing Dr. Biden said today that I wish we had time to follow up on, but by the time we got there, we were running low on time. She said it was hurtful to see some of her so-called friends make accusations that she was building this cocoon around President Biden and shielding him from people seeing his decline. Who do you think those friends are? Is this Nancy Pelosi? Is this what do you feel like because we know there's a rift there. We asked a little bit about it today.
Well, she laughed because I said, well, he lets go of things, but you're Italian, Joe. You can hold a grudge. Look, I think it was incredibly hurtful. And, I remember reading a book once, I think it was 1,000 Days maybe, but I remember reading a book about Jackie Kennedy and Jack Kennedy and how she would get so angry when people would attack him. And then she'd see that senator, that congressperson, and she'd still be angry. And Jack Kennedy would be, drinking with them and palling around with them. Look, I think for a spouse, sometimes it's doubly painful because you are dealing with your own feeling of being betrayed, but you're also dealing with your husband's pain and the fact that they have betrayed the person you love. So it's almost like a double, right? And look, I do think. It just seemed like Nancy Pelosi could not shut up during that time. I suspect Chuck Schumer was also telling him he should drop out, but you never heard about leaked conversations, right? It's like I don't feel like Chuck Schumer felt that he needed to take the credit for pushing him out of the race.
There's also been implications that President Obama was behind some of the push a little bit too.
But we have seen them interact. We saw them interact at the swearing in. We saw them. We've seen them interact at the Carter funeral.
Yeah, and he spoke warmly about him today when he did speak about him.
Yeah. So I don't get a sense. I really don't get a sense that Joe Biden carries that in his heart. I'm not saying Jill doesn't, but it's well reported. She's been quite open about it.
Yeah.
She has said that the word she used about Nancy Pelosi is that she was disappointed. Look, when a school teacher says she's disappointed, there's a lot more behind the word disappointment.
Well, I'm very proud of the interview. I thought you guys did a terrific job. I thought our producer, Dana, did a terrific job. And it was a great booking by our booker, Todd, our producer, Todd. And I think, you know what? Like, when it got out that President Biden was coming on the show, there's, he's going to a friendly place. And, there are people like you who have a lot of affection for him at the table, but we asked really important questions that needed to be asked.
We needed to ask him hard questions because if we had asked him softball questions, it would not have served.
No, of course not.
I think the reason he came is because he knew we would be fair. Nobody there was interested in a gotcha moment. Mm-hmm. We were interested in actually hearing from him. We have not heard from him in over 100 days. And what we were interested in is, an accurate depiction of how Joe Biden is doing now, how he's feeling, and what his opinion on what's going on is. And I hope he writes that book.
Mm-hmm. I hope he comes back
rather than later.
Yeah.
I hope he puts his version of what happened, and I hope Jill writes a book as well. They've had an incredible love story. And, just recently, Michelle Obama, I think in her podcast, or maybe it was Barack Obama, I can't remember which of the two said, no, it was Michelle or was it Barack? One of the two said that Barack was still in the doghouse from the years in the White House. And because of all the pressure that gets put on a marriage from the scrutiny and the life of being in the White House, like Dr. Biden said today, it's not a job, it's a life. It's a lifestyle. It's 24/7. And I get the sense that if anything with the Bidens, they have a stronger bond today, if possible, because they had a strong one to begin with. But this is a family that's been through. They've been through hell not once but several times.
Yeah.
And and love keeps them together, and love allows them to go through that.
All right, just like us here at The View. All right, thank you for joining me today, Anna.
Wait, wait though. Can I just tell them?
Yes.
So we come into the podcast booth, and you didn't even know it. And I look up and I see white smoke.
Yes.
And the first words out of your mouth were,
"Thank God." No, what did I say?
Thank God it didn't happen during the interview.
Show. Yes, of course. Well, yeah, this was a concern because it's breaking news. ABC News is in Rome, and we've had yesterday we were preempted on the East Coast, and of course this was a big interview. So there was concern that perhaps smoke would start to come out in the middle of our interview with President Biden and Dr. Biden, and would be preempted. That did not happen.
I asked Joe Biden right before he went out if he had a favorite for Pope. And he said, "I want somebody that continues what Francis started."
Yeah,
Pope
Francis is very special to him.
That has the same the same philosophy of inclusion. I want somebody that, and I said, "Yeah, we need somebody like Francis so that you and I don't get excommunicated."
Yeah, well, right now we're looking, and it's what time is it now? It's about 12:40, so we don't know who it is yet.
So it's 6:40 in Italy.
But the smoke has come, the bells have rung, and we're waiting.
And you know what? We're
going
to get to see him in daylight, because when Pope Francis came out, it was nighttime.
Right.
Because remember, he said "buonasera."
Yes.
Which means good night.
Yes.
And do you speak Italian?
I know a little Italian.
Okay, so you're not qualified to be Pope, because they like the popes to speak Italian.
Also, not being Catholic is probably a hard sell for me. But yes,
Cha-Cha wants a piece of cheese. I can give dogs a cheese, right?
Is cheese good?
Yeah.
Yeah, cheese
Not
is good.
great, but cheese good.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, we're done.
All
Let's
right,
go
we're
see
done.
the Pope.
Thank you for joining me today, Anna. Tomorrow we'll have an all-new episode of The View. I'm sure.
Oh my God, Joy Behar.
Yes.
Joy Behar promoting her play in front of telling Joe Biden to please come and see the play.
There's no
that
stopping
he had
her.
one more week.
That was not intended. But thank you for joining me. So, new episode tomorrow, and we'll see you on a new podcast next week. Thanks so much.
Behind the Table is executive produced by Brian Teta. Supervising producers are Summer Shake and Nathan Getty, with production assistant Emily Darcy and editor Brian Davis. Special thanks to Laurie Hogan, Molly Kaiser, and Katerina Alexopoulos. Producers for ABC Audio are Trevor Hastings, Camille Peterson, and Amira Williams, with supervising producer Susie Liu, executive producer of podcast programming Laura Mayer, and vice president Liz Alessi.